I stood there, admiring the many exhibits around me. Truly they were, to say the least, they were different. The exhibits around me had shown this character's past, this this interesting personality known as Discord. I looked around me at the, intriguing history behind him. It seemed to me that this Discord was some sort of demigod. He possessed unimaginable power. I looked over at him and said, "So you possess all of this power, and what do you do with it exactly? Do you just mess around?" He looks over at me. "Come now, dear Wilson. You expect me, of all people, to simply pass over a power such as mine? Besides, what fun is there in making sense? The world has never made sense, Wilson. Have you ever thought about that? I know of many kinds. I know of many worlds, many creations out there, and your world is no exception, Wilson. Since when has humankind ever made sense?" I looked at him and simply said, "Well, broad statement, but to be honest, we really haven't made much sense." "But look, Discord, I appreciate what you're doing. You're showing me your history for whatever reason, simply because I'm guessing that you're showing me all of this is because of my title as a gentleman scientist, the fact that you seem to be into some kind of, judging from your last few exhibits, swing dancing and all kinds of nonsense such as that. But you also seem to push towards me is because of apparently who I am and what I represent is of some importance to you. Either that or you're just lonely and you need someone to talk to, or a friend, or of such." His body extends longer, like he's a snake, but he's growing, and he wraps around me and looks at me in my face and says, "I simply like you because, let's be honest, dear Wilson, you have been in insanity before. You were broken down, your walls have broken around you, and you've been in the deepest depths of insanity, and come back. What makes you an interesting character is you look at everything with interest and marvel. If you weren't trying to uphold your title right now, you would be running left to right, taking notes, looking at the wonders of practically everything." I didn't know what to think. I just sat there. I was starstruck. Well, I guess some of that makes decent amount of sense, sure. However, here's what I will tell you, Discord, God or Prince of Chaos, or whatever your title is or it holds, is that I am different in many ways. You may think of me as some mere life being, some mere life force on your earth, or equine. But let me tell you something. is that I am a genius. Amongst my kind, I am one who goes to invent, takes the risk of many things. Discord leans in and says, precisely, which is why you have gained such an interest to me. Dear Wilson. Now I know you're confused. I know you're wondering many, many great things. But do not worry, for you are all right. He grabbed me and pulled me aside, walking with me. Tell me, Wilson, out of the world that surrounds you, what do you see most efficient? What do I see most efficient? Yes, indeed. What do you see? The chance to study a new species, a new kind, all entirely. Exactly. Do not let what you do foreshadow the reality, the truth of what you can and can be. Anyway, young Wilson, I may be Discord, Prince of Chaos, God of Chaos even. And you have struck yourself to me as an individual of rationality, logical, and common sense. Your intelligence far outweighs the many beings that are on this world and surpasses great levels. You are lucky I am reformed, or I may have found some use for you back then. I bid you good luck. We will meet again. And maybe you can join me and Spike and Macintosh on Guys Night Out. Wait, what? And just like that, he snapped his fingers, or his talons, or whatever, and I was out. I was back on the road. I looked around me, marveled at the sight. I didn't know I didn't know if this world had monsters. I knew it did, but not the same where I'm from. I wondered if I had to worry about cutting down too many trees and have a tree guard appear. Whatever. I began walking, smiling to myself. As I was walking, I felt around in my bag. I pulled out what I could. The first thing I pulled out was the walking cane. This allowed me to sprint or run rather, faster than most could. I pulled it out, held it in my hand, and began sprinting down the path. I would make it to Ponyville soon. The second I stepped foot into Ponyville, I put away my walking cane and looked around, marveled at the structure that these ponies had made. It was truly stunning. They may have hooves, but they can use magic. They can fly. I can see that they've built structures in the clouds. They are truly advanced with this magic. However, technology, well, they have a train, that's one thing for starters, and there's many other things that they haven't made. From my world, if they were to have them, I wonder how far they'd be on. I just shrugged. I then reached down into my bag and tried to pull out something. What the something was, well, I was still trying to find it. Maybe I'd find it. I had remembered picking it earlier. And after a little bit, I found it. I then shoved the entire piece of beef jerky into my mouth, crunching it, and then swallowing. As I walked around, the ponies stared at me, out of fear and confusion as to what I was, to my being, to who I was exactly. The structure. I was walking in a marketplace and saw the ponies trading and bargaining. Truly, they were economically stable, to say the least. Hopefully, anyway. I went up to one of the booths, and a orange one with a cowboy hat stared at me. I simply looked and said, "Good day, ma'am." I then gave a slight bow. "I was wondering if I could partake in some of your apples." Of course, I didn't really talk like this. I was just being more of a gentleman to make a decent impression. She stared at me and said, well, howdy, partner. I don't know if you have any money on you, or if you have any bits, so to speak. What is your name, ma'am?" "Applejack." She didn't know if Applejack stood there, or she just didn't know whether or not to buck the thing in the next town over, or just talk with it. She decided to not be ignorant for once and just talk to it. Applejack, what's your name?" "My name is Wilson, the gentleman scientist." I could pay for some of those apples, yes." I went to my bag and grabbed about 3 gold nuggets and put them on the table. "I may not have your currency, which I've heard being called bits, but I do have these gold nuggets I hope will suffice." She stared at them, wide-eyed. And I put a jewel on the table as well. I'd taken 20 apples and left. She was just starstruck. She'd never seen something like that. I could imagine that the gold would look different, as it wasn't just a nugget, no. It was a lump of gold. It was roughly the size of the average man's fist, except add an entire layer around that fist, of like a rag or such. That's how big it was. I was eating an apple as I walked around. I was nonchalant. I had to adapt, as back then I would walk around pig people and rabbit people and wild boars, and they were all people. They could talk. They possessed levels of intelligence, and I had to get used to it. As I was walking, I pulled out my journal and began writing, sitting on a park bench. I minded my business, and the others seemed to mind theirs. Until something or someone or pony came up to talk to me. Excuse me." I lowered my journal, looking up, getting a smile on my face. "Why, yes, madam. And of who do I owe the pleasure to?" "My name's Fluttershy. She spoke in a low voice that was barely audible, but I could hear it. "Fluttershy, I am Wilson, the gentleman scientist." I got off the bench, which seemed to frighten her a little bit. I then gave a slight bow, smiled, saying, What have you come to me for, Miss Fluttershy?" "Well, all the ponies are scared of you, Wilson, and Twilight sent me and a few of the others to come find you." I raised an eyebrow and said, "If you were to bring me to this, Twilight, I would be more than happy to explain my situation to you." She nodded as I began walking with her. I don't know how I was supposed to explain that I got trapped in some kind of shadow dimension full of wolves, tree guards, and all kinds of stuff, and I ended up barely scraping my way by with making various inventions and weapons and the likes of magical and all kinds of stuff. I had made tools, I had made boats, I had made traps for survival, I had crafted farms for food, I had made science equipment, I had made bows and armor and darts, I had made structures around myself and refined materials and magicked up staffs and amulets. I had made coats of such and hats to keep me warm. I had found books, and I had made the wares of many different things. I had fought off many creatures, even giants I had fought. Giants that towered over me, at least 10 stories high. I had been around the block, so to say. Nothing would practically surprise me at this point. However, meeting a demigod, that was something that did surprise me, and how nonchalant and laid back he was about everything. As we were walking, I smiled and said, "Fluttershy, you have no need to worry. I am here on good terms on behalf of you and the rest of this colony, so to speak. I will do everything in my power to make sure I do not get in the way of your society nor your livings. I promise." That seemed to set her at ease. We got right outside of the library. I knew that because of the sign. Why it was carved in the tree, I don't know. I've seen weirder. I could hear something in there talking. Most likely, this Twilight character was talking to Fang and Nightlight. We entered, and dead silence came over everything.